Today we shall see two questions that can measure your quantitative reasoning. So let's see about the two questions. The first one is saying that an election there was an election between two candidates. There were two candidates, the number of candidates are two. So what about the first one? The first one got 55%. 55%. And the total valid votes were only 20% of them were invalid, and the total valid could be deducted out of 20. That means the total valid is 80%. 80. If the total number of votes were given like 7,500, and the number of valid votes that the other candidate got was how much or how many? So that is a question. The point is, you gotta understand that there were two candidates as the first place. The first one got 55%, which means by default the other guy got 45. You are correct. 55%. The first person, right? The first person got 55%, which means by default the second candidate must get 45% because there were only two candidates in this competition. So we have to understand the valid and the invalid votes. We will have to deduct. Let's see. What is a valid vote? How much is a valid vote? The valid vote is 80% because the invalid vote was 20%. Okay? So if the invalid vote is 20%, the valid vote should be 80% of the total. The total is given, which is 7,500. Here also 7,500. So when you find out the correct calculation, 80% of 75, if you can calculate it, you can calculate by 0.8. The same is true, you can calculate 0 with 0.2. Here you can find the valid vote 6,000. So the valid vote was 6,000. So if the valid vote was 6,000, how much of this belonged to the other guy, which is the one who got 45% of the valid votes? So we have to calculate 45% out of 6,000, right? So which means this means that 6,000 times 0.45. It has to be calculated like this because 45% means 0.45. So the correct answer is 2,700 votes. So this person, the other guy, must get 2,700 votes. The other one, the first guy, gets which is 55%. That was not the question, we have to skip it. But if you want to get it, you can just deduct out of this one. You can get that the person got 6,000 minus 2,700, it has to be 3,300 votes. So this guy gets 3,300 votes, but the other guy, the person who's the question, got 2,700 votes. Let's go to the next question. The next question is about fraction. So you can get it by looking at the statement. The statement here says, if one third of 1/4 of the number is 15. This is a question. I just changed it to quantitative manner. So 1/4 of that number is 15. What is that number? You can find it in many ways. You can go backward or you can go forward. The point is I would like to go backward. So let's see. If 1/4 of that number is 15, what is that number? I just would like to calculate 15 times 4 because that number must be 60. Because 60, if you count 25%, sorry, which means I can get 15, which means 1/4 of 60 is 15. So we get 60, right? So what will be the number if 1/3 of that number is 60? If 1/3 of that number is 60, that number should be 60 times 3, right? That is 180, right? So the number is 180. So 180 is the number, but the question is not to get the number, rather to get 3/10 of the number, which means 3/10 of this number, which is 180. So in this case you can get what? 180 times 3, which is 540 over 10. You can get 54. If you get 54 for this number, which means the correct answer. 54. So you can get this kind of questions in my site, so you can subscribe. So you can share it to your friends and solve this kind of GAT, SAT, and many other questions that measure your quantitative skills